So in the last chapter, chapter 22, yep, Isabel was in front of a judge at a jury, and Madam wants her wants her to be branded with the letter I, and the judge said 20 strokes of the lash would be more in keeping with her crimes, but no, Madam wants her branded. And she said, well, do you want her branded with your husband's initial? And she said, no, I want her branded with the letter I for insolence. And this way, everybody will know. If she just got 20 strokes with a like a belt, I mean, they would heal, and then nobody would know the kind of person that Madam thinks she is. But if she's branded, everybody will know. Okay, this is Monday, July 15th, 1776. A man pulled me by my rope outside to the courtyard. After 2 days in the dungeon, the noonday sun scalded my eyes. I stumbled, but did not fall. The man led me to the stocks, and then untied my hands and pointed. I laid my head and hands in the crescents carved into the wood. He lowered the top board, pinning me in place, and secured the two pieces together with a large padlock. So she's in kind of like a, her hands are here, her head is here, and it's all held together with wood on top and on bottom, so she can't move, basically, kind of like a stockade. A brazier filled with hot coals set on the ground a few lengths in front of me. A second man stuck 2 branding irons into the metal baskets to heat them up. My knees turned to water. I sagged against the wood. "Stand up, girl, or you'll choke yourself," growled the man locked into the stocks to my left. I couldn't turn my head enough to see him, but his voice was rough and scarred. "Whatever you do, don't scream," he continued. "That's what they want to hear." I did not answer him, but forced my knees to hold me up. The wood locked around my neck was rough and splintering. My hands were soon without any feeling. My neck and arms pricked 100-fold by pitchforks. 2 men were housed in the iron cage next to City Hall. One lay on the ground asleep or dead. The second, his skin burned by the sun and peeling and missing his left ear, stared back at me blankly. A court official, his coat covered with yellow dust, arrived with a man who wore a leather apron. He set to work pumping a hand bellows to increase the heat under the branding irons. The bellows wheezed in and out while the sun rose higher in the sky. It had rained in the night. The mud puddles scattered around the yard gave off steam like cauldrons coming to boil. Sweat rolled off my face and fell in great drops to the dirt below. The wind shifted and blew the smoke from the brazier into our faces. I held my breath. In betwixt me and the brazier, dandelions grew in the mud. The man in the dusty coat pulled one of the branding irons out of the fire. He brought it close to his face and spit on it, and the iron sizzled. My companion coughed and cursed the court officials and the judge who had sentenced him. A crowd had gathered a few lengths on the other side of the brazier, mostly soldiers and tradesmen, with a few women, one carrying a baby in her arms. I thought I saw a boy in a red hat, but when I blinked, he was gone. Men at the front of the crowd called us names and jeered. The sunburned man in the cage yelled back, and soon the courtyard was filled with shouts and filthy language, the kind of words my mother never wanted me to say or hear. I fought against tears and lost. They fell to the dust in big drops too. If I cried a river, maybe I could swim away or slip under the water to freedom. The man in the dusty coat said something to the man in the leather apron. I could not hear him because of the noise of the crowd and the crackling coals and the beat of my heart in my ears. The men walked toward me. The dandelions were lemon yellow with bright green leaves and thick stalks pointing to the sky. At home in Rhode Island, the corn was tall as Ruth now. The spring lambs would be too heavy to pick up. The new goat, he'd be running headfirst into every fence post. This was a good day to bleach the wool, I thought. The man with the leather apron pinned my head against the wood. He stank of charcoal. I tried to pull away, but my hands and head were locked fast. The splinters chewed on me. Dandelions grew in the mud. The glowing iron streaked in front of my face like a comet. The crowd roared. The man pushed the hot metal against my cheek. It hissed and bubbled. Smoke curled under my nose. They cooked me. The man stepped back and pulled the iron away. The fire in my face burned on and on, deep through my flesh, searing my soul. Stars exploded out the top of my head, and all of my words and all of my rememberies followed them up to the sun, burning to ash that floated back and settled in the mud. A few people at the edge of the crowd had fallen silent. They walked away with their heads down. My mama and papa appeared from the shadows. They flew to me and wrapped their arms around me and cooled my face and with their ghost tears. Night crept into my soul. So what do you think has happened to her? Her face just got branded with the letter I. They burned the letter I into her skin. And she said she's seeing her parents now. Do you think she's kind of hallucinating with all the stress and all of the terror? Yeah, and just think, getting your face branded. Oh my goodness, that had to be just awful. Okay, let's go on. I think we can finish this chapter. All right. The spark kindled on my cheek. It flared and spread through my entire body. First my eyes, then hair, then down my limbs until even my toes and fingers felt they were on fire. Strange scenes swam before me, first in light, and then darkness, and then light again, so she's going in and out of consciousness. I saw Papa, but no, not truly him, another son of Africa, brow burrowed, his voice deep and strong as a church bell. Mama hovered over me, but her face faded into a woman I did not know, older than Mama, with strands of white in her hair. She talked Jamaica, more song than words, and brought bitter tea to my mouth, and made the world smell of lemons, and told me to sleep. I asked Ruth over and over again, and tried to apologize for letting her get stolen, but the words were sawdust in my mouth. Curzon's face floated up in front of me. He told me to shake my lazy bones and get out of bed. He did not turn into a dead person from when I was little. This was a strange comfort, and I blinked, and he was gone. The room was dark again, with starlight in the windows, and the sounds of a baby crying, and farther away the barking of a lonely dog. Strangest of all was the hive of bees that had taken up residence inside of me. They swarmed under my skin and gave off peculiar vibrations. The buzzing echoed in my brain and crowded out my thoughts. The fire in me burned on and on. I woke. I did not know where I was. This was not Rhode Island, or the hold of a ship, or the locked-in cellar, or any other rooms in their house. It certainly was not the dungeon under City Hall. Was this a dream? Had I passed over to the land of the dead? Did ghosts sleep on clean sheets that smelled of mint? I sat up. The room was warm and quite small, but entirely free of dirt, vermin, and mice. The walls were freshly whitewashed and the floor polished. Lace curtains fluttered in the window. Through it I saw the tops of trees. This was an attic room, then. The bed was softer than anything I had ever lain in, properly made up with linens, 2 pillows, and a coverlet of deep blue. Coverlet's like a bedspread. A chair was positioned next to the bed, and a chamber pot, empty, rested under that. I tried to stand, but the room spun around me, and I plopped back down. I was wearing my shift, still stained with blood at the neckline, but my skirt, stockings, and bodice were not to be seen, or my shoes. I closed my eyes tight and then opened them again. Same room, still no shoes. The door opened, and in stepped the funny talking Dutch maid of Lady Seymour. Her eyes flew open wide. Then she slammed the door shut and ran away. A moment later, the door opened again, and in walked Lady Seymour herself. "Ah," she said with a faint surprise, "you've come back to us." She poured water from the jug into a mug, handed it to me, and sat on the chair. I drank down a gulp. My lips were dried and cracked. When I swallowed, it caused my burned cheek to ache. My fingers flew up to check the wound. There was a cloth stuck to my face, with ointment oozing out from the edges. Lady Seymour leaned forward and gently removed my hand. "Best not to touch it yet," she said. The healer woman put a comfy salve on it to draw out the pestilence. So a salve is like a kind of medicine, like a gooey medicine to help it heal. "Beg pardon, ma'am," I croaked. My voice was raspy with lack of use. "But where am I? And why?" She glanced out the window before she spoke, her mouth set in a grim line. "How best to say this?" she began. I waited, not sure how to answer. "You have lain here, near insensible, for 6 days." So she was kind of unconscious in Lady Seymour's house for 6 days now. 6? Yes. Do you remember what happened? The bees threatened to overtake my mind again, their wings beating quickly. I took another drink of water. "Well, I remember some. The rest is a jumble." "Well, you tried to run away and were beaten in the attempt. You passed 2 days under City Hall and emerged gravely ill with fever and heaven knows what else. After your trial, you were branded. I was not aware of these events until after they occurred. Your friend with the red hat came to the door with the news that you were near dead in the stocks. After consulting with Anne, I arranged to have you transported here." She looked directly at me. I further questioned Anne and discovered her version of the events. "I find the buying and selling of children most repugnant. Your reaction to the news of your sister, while unfortunate, was understandable in my view." Ruth, buzzed the bees. I blinked back tears. "Do you know who bought my sister, ma'am?" "I have so far failed to uncover the fact." She stood up and walked to the window. "My nephew's wife is stubborn, as well as intemperate." I clutched at the bed covers. "I will find her." She pulled the lace curtain aside and studied something passing in the street below. I thought through what she said and found a slim thread of hope to grasp hold of. "Begging pardon again, ma'am, but do I work for you now?" She let the curtain fall. "I am afraid not. Anne insists that you be returned to her household as soon as you are able. The law supports her position, I fear, and in these unsettled times there is little remedy." A wave of weariness crashed over me at the thought of serving Madam again, of allowing her to see the mark upon my face every day. "I expect you'd like to bathe, Lady Seymour said. "Angelica is preparing the water for you as we speak. You'll find the rest of your clothes in the kitchen." She paused in the doorway. "You miss your parents terribly, don't you?" "Pardon, ma'am?" "While you lay in the fever, you spoke of them with great affection, as if they were in the room with us." She hesitated for a moment and then picked up her skirts. "No matter. I will escort you back to Anne's once you've bathed and eaten." Angelica took the trouble to make the tub full and the water warm and sweet-smelling. I thanked her, and she gave me a little smile. She said something in Dutch speech, which I did not understand. We must have looked like two fools, me speaking English, her talking Dutch, both nodding our heads and wishing we had the right words. My clothes had been washed and ironed, my shoes wiped clean of mud and muck. Even better was the meal of fried eggs, toasted bread, and a fruit compote of pears and apples topped with strawberries and cream. When Angelica set the food in front of me, her eyes went to the fresh scar on my face, rinsed clean of salve and patted dry. She winced at the sight. I'm going to have to stop there. We're going to run out of time. Stay tuned.